It's time to awaken and remember who you really are. It's time to live a life that you absolutely love. And it is time for the awakened being. Conversations to create change. Having real, transparent conversations that will change your world. And together, we can change the world. Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Awakened Being Conversations to Create Change. I am Sundari, aka Marci Locke, and this show is about your shit and going from your shit to aligning to the pathway to arrive at your serenity. Really diving into how we can create our own liberation versus suffering and some deeper depths to that, as well as just sharing really authentic, transparent, just coming from some of my own activations in Egypt and Peru and sharing the depths of the wounds that were coming up for me and emotional alchemizing this transition and some of the exact things that I got to do to then move and align to a higher vibration of my future self-consciousness. So really excited to share this with you guys and just, what was the most present. And if you haven't yet, go to marcilocke.com. You can always receive the free activation, the ultimate life of having it all. Also on there is just any way that we can serve you, any way that you're struggling in your life and you are desiring support, please check out. There's some activations, there's meditations, there's a couple coaching programs that are really powerful and effective in moving your unconscious commitments to your belief systems, to knowing how to move through. My 5 steps is knowing how to move through every single thing in front of you from unconscious to conscious. There's the tribe, which is my highest recommendation because you get access to everything and all the support in the community and me in there. And there's just so many extra trainings. There's just so many ways that you can be supported. Our whole intention is that you get to continue to step towards a life of greater and greater. So check out marcilocke.com if you haven't yet. Definitely get that free activation. And I'm so excited to share this show with you. Oh my goodness. I feel like there's so much to share as I've just wrapped a deep immersion in both. Since I've done a show, I went all the way through all my experiences in Peru. I had one of my retreats as well as working with the Tree of Light, Noira, which was a new experience for me. And then I was in the Gathering of the Grandmothers, which was a whole intense week-long experience with 555, basically medicine women and healers from all over the world, 35 plus countries, being a part of that. And then did some work with the orphanage and then had some of my own integration time before heading to Egypt and did a 15-day immersion all over Egypt in sacred temples and portals and literally getting access to, the King's Chamber and the back secret pathways and crawling on my belly through tunnels to, oh my goodness, just the activations was just so much. And I have now grounded and landed in Colombia, where I have 2 weeks of integration time here on the beach and in Santa Marta, before I head back to Bogota to meet my peeps flying in from all over the world for my retreat coming up, the Portal to Liberation, where I take my peeps down to the jungle and we do deep work, transformational work with ayahuasca for a week. So I feel like there's just so many lessons and immersions, and it's just been coming through so strong. There's so much I want to share on my own. It's all just vulnerability, and it's all just sharing my stories of my own experiences. I've gotten to have more wounds and old hurts and, contracts and all these things come up through these activations to light and how to heal those. And so, as I was, really sitting with, there's so many things that I want to share. It's like, wow, if I just rambled off on these, I could go off, I'm sure, for hours. And a lot of these deep wounds and experiences have been building and shifting through these experiences. So, I feel like I just finally was like, this is just the way that I roll. I'll just hit record and be a channel of what comes through and what is on my heart and in my, spirit that is of the highest alignment to share. And there might be lots of truths and nuggets and things because I can go in a lot of places. And I just pray that your heart can receive and be open to receive exactly what is right for you right now, and open to hear the truths that allow you to get the next step. Because I know for myself, embodiment of things that I've been teaching for years continues to get greater. And you think you've totally got something down, and then you have the next level of clarity and understanding and embodiment of that truth within your system. And then it gets even greater and it gets even greater. So we all continue to be on this beautiful pathway. And what's the most present for me is recently we just shared one of the shows that was called Liberation Without Suffering. And from that, this is just part of choosing to be fully standing in truth is, there was someone who, from my post about, you can choose liberation without suffering, had kind of like hater messages, which was really just a scared, hurt little girl. I have no attachment or issue with anyone having their own experience, and I don't attach it to myself through the work that I've done. Yet hearing their perception of me traveling around the world, seeing pictures of me, they said meditating and traveling around the world. And obviously, if I was someone who could just travel around the world and meditate, I wasn't suffering and had no idea what it was like to be in suffering. And obviously had never been abused or abandoned and all these things that I was like, well, this is funny. Have you not heard my story, which was abuse and abandonment and lack and scarcity and fighting for every single meal and survival every day, most of my life. So I completely understand that. And it was just beautiful to have go back and forth in sharing gratitude for this person's perceptions and understanding how they could feel or think that way based on what they're looking for and what, came through for them with feeling like, it must be narcissistic and it's some, white, rich people, spiritual bypass. There was all sorts of fun things, which just reflected the pain of someone. And what I really resonated with was that as I speak into my own truth, as I always appreciate and thank someone for their, sharing what's their truth, because this is what's interesting is I've had like probably 99% of the people who leave hater messages end up becoming big fans and a lot of people message me and say, I learned so much just from seeing how you interacted with that and how you, again, there's nothing for me to prove. There's nothing for me to hide. There's no judgment. There's no blame or shame. There's simply just what is. And that person, everything they're speaking into and they're projecting. And we know that everything we're projecting or that we have resistance is only the form of energy that is keeping us from manifesting. And resistance is always holding us back from what's on the next side to receive. And the resistance energy is just showing us what inside we still get to love. So when I understand these truths, I don't attach it to me. I know that, I'm just being a perfect trigger for the person to see what inside they still haven't come into wholeness with or come into love with or accepted within themselves that they're projecting or seeing it in other people. And we're just mirrors for each other, which is beautiful. And so what really resonated for me, or I wanted to maybe bring more clarity around, was what I actually mean by liberation without suffering. And give you some of my own shit, oh my God, I've been in this shit back and forth and all over the place with these deep activations, which is what this is meant for. So I could cleanse and clear and heal the deeper layers of this. And I just want to bring more clarity to that. And, along the way, that is share some of a lot of these activations and these experiences that I've had recently that have been calling me forth to clear and cleanse and heal these wounds and these hurts at another deep level to receive even greater. So what I mean by you can have liberation without suffering is when we look at how we create our own suffering is, let's take, for example, even, the idea of me doing this post. This post was like liberation without suffering and, speaking to how the truth is it's a choice. We create our own suffering. And from whatever I said in this post, it was just basic little bits of inspiration from, lots of people's point of view. This person's point of view was, that it's about creating freedom. And what this person was choosing was basically their own suffering, that people don't have a choice and that they are a victim and that they, that we're like all these perceptions and these complaints were focused on suffering. Now, the same post could inspire someone, and for someone else, they could choose thoughts and ideas that they're a victim and, you've somehow had it better than I have and that I have no way of changing my life, and they create their own suffering. Now, what I mean is that every single thought, every single experience, we basically can choose thoughts and perceptions and look at it. We can act or react accordingly, all that can either create more of our own suffering or it can create more of our own liberation. And because I get this so much, meaning I was that person. I remember at one point in my life when I really first started down really truly started down the pathway of internal, work and journey, was realizing I just see weeds everywhere. Someone would say something about the flowers or the trees, and I was like, I didn't see that. I saw the weeds on the side of the road. And I literally couldn't see the good, because all I had been accustomed to my entire life was survival and sacrifice and tolerating and just doing anything to make it by. And how am I gonna, how do I get through this thing now? And so it's like all I could see was the weeds. And I remember having this moment where, as I started opening up my eyes, was like, I'm so tired of just seeing the weeds. Why did I miss, I saw the weeds on the side of the road, and why did I miss the whole pasture of flowers sitting right behind it? Why didn't I look up and see the horses in the pasture and the mountains and the beauty? I was looking at the fucking weeds, and that's all I had created seeing in my life. So hence, when we're choosing to only look at the weeds, we are choosing that basically, we're holding ourselves from seeing all that's available in every moment, all the magic and the miracles that are there. And so at one point I was like, I want to see the flowers. I want to see the leaves on the trees, and I want to be able to see the beauty that is here. And it was a coming to realization for myself that I was creating my own suffering. Now, that's an inkling of how I was creating my own suffering. That was just a reflection of seeing how what I was looking at life through, the lens I was looking at life through, was looking for the bad, and what was looking for, what wasn't working. And that portrayed in all areas of my life. And so as I share kind of some of these activations and immersions and experiences, they brought up the depth of my shit, really the depth of my shit. And this is why I want to give clarity to going from shit to the pathway to arrive at your serenity. And it really does start from recognizing that suffering is a choice. We can learn through fun and play and pleasure and magic and ease and grace. And we can also learn through struggle and hardship and sacrifice and suffering and pain and, lack of love, and all the ways that are available in that as well, because we are all divine sovereign creators that's here for our own specific discovery and journey of who we truly are and all the things that we want to learn. And so when I really understood that, it's as easy or as hard as we want to make it based on what, and in this experience, whatever experience I'm in. Now, if someone says, that's my circumstance, I was born into an abusive family, totally understand how that can come up as I don't have a choice. And now if you choose, I don't have a choice, I was abused, this was done to me, and you continue those perceptions for your whole life, is that going to create more suffering? And is it going to serve you towards going towards a life that you might want to experience of happiness or joy or feeling healed of that? And there's a choice of saying, okay, I experienced this. What's the good in this? What did I learn from this? What can I do with this? What did this teach me? Deep compassion and love. What did it teach me is, empathy and compassion to assist others that have been through abuse. What it taught me is, different levels and layers of relationship operating and consciousness and all sorts of things. There's, massive amounts of gold in this. As I even worked with a client one time around cleansing and clearing the healing with that, is obviously I went through a lot of my own abuse as well. And they couldn't clear it as they continued to see it as wrong. It just continued to not clear. The moment they actually said what was right about this and what was good about this and what did I learn from this, they actually got a whole download and saw how they chose in on the contract, even as a 6-year-old child, a little child, how they were a highly evolved divine light being that chose in on this experience, and what it actually led to by them being the person that had that experience, and what evolved from everything that liberated so many other people because this person chose in on that experience. Now, just from that, if we look at something from any viewer perception, we are either creating more of our own suffering or more of our own liberation. We are either putting ourselves in a prison of enslavement, or we're choosing our own freedom. Like I said, the liberation is a choice for us. The suffering is also a choice for us. So really, I want to fill in some gaps, it feels like, to maybe some ways that this can look, that we can, and knowing that this is the journey. What I really want to bring clarity to is that when we take on this journey of, all right, I'm growing, evolving, I'm expanding, I'm seeing what's here so that I can have greater, because we're on our journey of receiving greater and greater every day, because every single day you can only have greater and greater. You're only more of a wise being, you're more conscious, you're just more. There's no way you can go back. So I want to create first that there is no way you can ever make a mistake. It is impossible for you to make a mistake, because every single thing that you experience is based on energy. It is what it is. You attract it into your life. So to say, I shouldn't have had this happen, or why did this happen? You see how that is creating your own suffering. It is what it is. It's right here in this moment. And it was drawn to you perfectly based on your energy, your vibrations, your beliefs, what you called forth, what you set forth as a highly divine being that chose in on this as your experience of learning and growth. So in seeing it all through the eyes of love, knowing like, oh, this is actually what I created and chose for myself. Why would we tell ourselves any other story that I shouldn't be experiencing this, or this was bad or wrong, etc.? So see how we create our own suffering just from the first thought or perception that we choose about it. And then that leads to the emotions that we feel and the actions that we take, and the spiral of actually reflecting the level of consciousness that we're experiencing. And so really what I want you to hear is that as we go on this path, what happens, and is so common that I see with many of my clients as well as my own self, this definitely showed up for me through all my recent immersions, which I'll give you some specifics around to create clarity, is that you feel like your oldest shit comes back up again. And what I always told my clients is what happens is we have these core wounds and we have these deep hurts and these, our core limiting beliefs, you could call them. We all have, there's like 5 or 6, and I teach this somewhere. We have like 5 or 6 main core wounds and beliefs, and each of us have usually several. I'm not worthy, I'm not deserving, I'm unlovable, I can't trust myself, any of those. And so a lot of times now from that core belief, we've created all of our patterns and behaviors in our operating systems, all of the beliefs surrounding that as to how to act and operate and be. So we might have a specific, stuff like sabotaging patterns or things that were like a way of behaving as a reaction or a way of keeping us in this limiting belief. And so, you think that you've done the depths on that, you've healed that, maybe it's a pattern that you haven't done for a really long time. And then it comes up again. And this is just, instead of thinking, why the fuck is this coming up again? I thought I healed this, etc. And again, creating your own suffering. You get to catch and witness where in every single moment, you can actually now choose the view of everything, if nothing is ever a mistake, and every interaction and every experience was designed by you and for you and is for your greater good and is of learning and wisdom and energy alignment to see what the feedback is so that you can have even greater, then you can now witness and see how in every single moment, if other than to see it as what a beautiful surprise of transformation, see it as this, obviously I'm so excited. Like, I'm so excited for the alchemy of this. I'm so excited for the transformation of this. And believe me, I had to catch myself in this. And I was like really struggling with some really old shit that came back up, back and forth and back and forth. And as I remember, I bring myself back to the remembrance of these principles. That is like, I am for transformation. And I see this out of course, this is for my greatest good and transformation. And I actually shift it to, I'm so excited to be in the alchemy of this thing, that obviously it's at the greater depths again. So what I just want you to hear is that when your old shit comes up, it actually is a beautiful red flag. I've taught all my clients, I'm like, that's when you go, this thing comes up, be like, oh, thank you. That's one I can recognize so easily. And I know that is attached to my deepest core wounds. It's my ego, which I won't necessarily go off on a rant of ego and how that actually is your partner, not anything to fight, but the ego in doing its job of trying to support you and in staying where you believe you're safe. It's like the ego knows every little trick and secret of what will come up for you to really affect your scared little self. The self that feels so limited and all those limiting beliefs. And it knows exactly the ways to just trigger that so that it's like we see the levels of mastery of our consciousness. I had this experience just recently when I got to Colombia. so many things happened, which I have so much to share with you guys, but so many things happened where I was just a Jedi and mastered consciousness, flow and ease, neutrality with all things. And then I got to my place that we had set up for me. And just because I had had so much happening and coming up, just the fact that I couldn't completely communicate with the people and there was some miscommunication and the space wasn't as sweet and nice as we expected it to be to support my energy, which I'll share a lot around all that stuff. I lost my shit. I literally went into crying, bawling, wanted to go eat shit food. It's just like, and I laughed with my assistant as we were messaging and we're like, all right, cool. What do we get to do? We get to get me another place. I'm a couple days later here at this gorgeous, beautiful resort that actually the very next day I was led to. I went just down a beach walk and then something said, go up through the beach and go that way. And I ended up finding this place and so I'm beachside, literally on the beach in this gorgeous divine resort, which all the stuff that came up was to allow me to see where old patterns of like tolerating and what I would have dealt with in the past and like, well, how do I get to, and seeing the evidence of this and where I got to shift it. Anyways, my point of all that, sharing all this information, is that I lost my shit. And when I lost my shit, I laughed and was like, well, that just went to show exactly how many layers I could go where I had mastered my consciousness before it showed me where I just went unconscious and where the little things triggered me. And it was triggering me because, I was all these things that were again coming up to be cleansed and cleared. There was so much shit coming up about my body, which is some of my deep core wounds, about how I look, about being safe to be seen and heard, I can go into the depths of it, but it's like, because all of that had been churning from all these activations and things that I'd done, because frequency, a high level vibrational frequency and this low vibrational stuff still stuck in your cells and your body, the stuck Shakti and energy from traumas and experiences that you're carrying in your body, even past and parallel lifetimes, etc. It's like when you go through these experiences and you receive this new understanding, this new level of consciousness that awakens and activates in your body. This is kind of a gist of what went down between the stuff that I went through in Peru and the stuff that I definitely went through in Egypt. So it's like it was pulling up, it was started to churn. Think of it as, if there's all this mud that has settled down on the bottom of a pool and then, they turn on the cleaner of the pool or something or, shoot some water in it and everything comes up and then it just looks like a pool full of dirty water. It doesn't instantly look clean. It brings up all the stuff and it's churning and it's getting filtered. And so when you start on the path of I'm in my shit and you're moving towards a greater and greater life experience, which can only happen every day, the more you choose to see it, as I'm explaining, that it is actually all for you and what you chose and your greatest benefit, the faster and quicker you're moving it through the field. The churn is happening and you're moving it through the field, you're witnessing. And these are the steps we go through in recognizing and witnessing our patterns and our behaviors and what's happening and how we're not aligned. They're not aligned to the actual experience we want to be experiencing or the consciousness that we want to be experiencing, which is a whole, I really love shifting into connecting to your future self-consciousness, not looking at the things I got to manifest, because that's actually not the consciousness that is where you're already operating, where you receive the things. So instead of going off on a whole nother tangent about that, what I want you to hear is that this is part of the moving towards greater and greater, is that what gets churned up, that's been settled and maybe suppressed and deep down in your soul and your system and your body and your cells and your consciousness, your subconsciousness, what's been covered up, then gets to be shook up and starts churning in your field. And all the things all over the place, when you become aware and you choose to be aware and witness things and see what's actually happening, it's everywhere. And it's like, your shit is left and right in your face coming up. And it can look like your old stuff. That's what I want you to hear. It can look like your deepest stuff. And no matter how many times you think you've healed it, what I want you to hear is that it's only coming up because it reflects another layer that you've allowed yourself to awaken and go to. And what I want you to hear is that the layer that you're willing to allow yourself go to, the depth of emotional alchemy. Manifestation is very much emotional alchemy. It's taking the deep emotions and being able to fully allow them to be observed and witnessed and accepted and seen and held to be experienced so that they can actually move. The energy can move. And as you feel it and you fully accept and allow this to be here. And then from that, it's like, whoa, like what is the understanding? What's the feedback? What's the things I'm witnessing? Whoa, I had this belief system that was operating. I didn't even recognize I really believed that. And I had this program running and operating. Oh, I see how I instantly react and I go to this pattern or behavior and what's that actually going to give me? And my 5 steps that I teach on going from unconscious to subconscious is the greatest tool that I use still. And is so if you're not sure what I'm talking about, that is very helpful. You just get the freedom audios and that will walk you through the 5 steps. And it comes with the 5 steps video and really teaches you how to take every experience, every situation, how to consciously communicate, how to walk through things with yourself and go through that. And so when I talk about this, like this is part of the tool that I created to walk through it, yet you're witnessing all this and you're seeing all this and you're getting the feedback of it. And then what's available is now for you to align all your new patterns and actions and behaviors to the higher future self-conscious, where the future self is like, I got this down. Let's say, for instance, like I'm in total peace with my body. I'm living in sacred, beautiful, divine space that reflects my worthiness. I have beautiful, divine, epic, amazing relationships that are all aligned to my level of worthiness and my highest self. I'm doing what I absolutely love. I'm working as my highest self. That's a consciousness state. It's not when I manifest the relationship, then I am at a place where I finally have divine sacred union, and then I feel whole because I have this, so I need to manifest a relationship, so then I feel better about myself, so then I can have those kind of experiences where I travel the world. I'm sharing this, guys, because this was part of my shit. Everything I share is part of my shit. It's the best way we get to learn and just being totally vulnerable and authentic and transparent in all the things that were my past programs and my shit that continue to find layers of healing. And again, I'm happy to share there's so much that I do want to share, but I am happy to share the actual lessons that I've been learning from that. So getting back to though, that what's going to happen is as that stuff gets churned and then now you're like, okay, I get to align my new patterns and behaviors to the consciousness. How would this higher self-consciousness be operating? And what does that consciousness look like instead of aiming for the thing? And as this churning happens and we get to then be with all of it, again, the emotional alchemy is what I was talking about. The depths of the emotional alchemy I'm willing to go, the depths that I'm willing to feel the pain, the stories or the feelings of rejection, the beliefs that I'm not worthy or not good enough, or, that all the things, whatever it is, the depths that I'm willing to actually be with that. Fully feel that, fully accept it. And this is the key, radical self-acceptance, not spiritual bypass acceptance where we go, oh, this thing, I see this and okay, I love it. It's okay. Is it gone? Like that's very spiritual service bullshit acceptance. And I do it too. I have done it too. I've caught myself in like fighting the depths of what came up huge for me is these really, really old wounds and really old patterns of just really wanting to eat shit food and sabotage with my body. Gosh, a lot of things came up and through my past activations. That was such a big one for me though, because it was like such just all the journey I've done with my body through several years. If you know know anything about my past, I was anorexic and bulimic growing up. I grew up, in total lack and scarcity on a farm, not even sure how we were going to eat unless we grew our own food. And just and seen from a time I was very little, that if I didn't have a perfect body, I wasn't going to be enough and wasn't going to be loved. And hence that created the patterns of eating disorders and fighting my body and fighting food, sicknesses, diseases. I saw my dad sick and he died of diabetes. So then I had, a heart attack by 19. I had breast cancer by age 24. I had, so many sicknesses and diseases all growing up because there was such a deep level of fight with the body and also a fight to it not be safe to be seen or to be heard or to be beautiful. Hence my spiritual name I was given by an enlightened master that just put me into tears is Sundari, which is divine beauty, universal beauty. And because my soul's path had been fighting my own beauty, fighting my own illumination and light, fighting that it was safe to be seen or to be beautiful. So many things come up. My skin shows up on my face to like react or to make me not want to be seen, make me not want to do videos and be out there and want to hide and want to pull back and feel like I'm not enough. And such deep levels of old patterns of sabotaging with food were coming up. And another one that came up was this, what I'd been through this journey of my aloneness to come to a place of like total being with myself fully. Not feeling like I could ever be alone. Like it was crazy to think that I could ever be alone because I'm always with myself and I'm always with the divine and I'm always like with all of the universe and I'm connected to the energy of all things. And that came up again. It was like, just really wanting someone to be with, to see all these things all over the world and all these places. And I was feeling so shook up. And it was like, the depths of my soul were being triggered, mastering my consciousness being triggered, that it's like all of a sudden next thing I knew, I was like eating shit food. And it's like, how did that even happen? And I was just catching and witnessing and letting through the layers that I've been, as I was saying, through the layers that I've been with my body. It went from becoming a personal trainer who I was a nutrition, fitness, mindset expert on ABC4 and on national TV. And I was teaching how to live in alignment with the body, with the belief systems, knowing that it's easy when the belief systems are I'm worthy and you get to feel good and there's nothing to fight. Going to whole other layers of, being with enlightened masters in India and seeing that their body was actually not a focus at all. And it's like questioning all my belief systems and obviously the stories of what I thought there still was attachments and expectations I had on myself that I am enough if I look this way and I'm enough if I feel fit and healthy and strong. So there's truth is truth in all facets of what you're looking for, so I could go so into depth on this. Yet what I want to come back to is, as I was saying, that, as these things were churning up for me, because there was a whole nother level of acceptance with myself I got to feel. And so it's like acceptance of myself, whatever my skin was doing, wherever my body was at, and being put in situations where I had to choose to be seen and heard, even running retreats and doing things and fully owning and dropping the attachments and these stories and these expectations that were creating my own suffering. Now, in that space, I get to come to what does make me feel good. Obviously, this pattern behavior, if I'm, reaching out for food, for feeling and for trying to feel grounded because I was all over the place, is not making me feel good. It's actually a pattern of distraction. And I could see and witness how when these things wanted to come up, there was obviously feelings and things to be with. And so when those patterns come up, it's so clear that I have some inner stuff to look at. And that's why I always say we can make this so simple, and that if you're not feeling joyful, peaceful, awesome, blissful, magic, miracles, you're not feeling love, happiness, or any emotion that you want to be experiencing, you're experiencing something that doesn't feel good. If energy never lies and something doesn't feel good, you look within to see, what doesn't feel good? And you allow that, and you go internal to be able to go through the feedback of that, to witness what's there, to transmute it and bring it back to in alignment, that you can only then continue to rise in a vibration and feel even better. Yet, guys, I really want to clarify or give you an example from my own stuff, how to make those shifts. Because, like I said, again, my deepest shit came up. I was like, as I was talking to some of my coaches and spiritual mentors and even friends, was like, I haven't experienced this depth and level of just feeling so out of control with my body and feeling like the urge to sabotage or feeling so off. And what I discovered was a belief that was what came up. There was one that came up that I realized as I was tuning in and witnessing this, and again, witnessing and just loving and accepting. That's the pathway, is to all right, what is this? Not shaming or blaming and saying, oh, this is bad, this is wrong. Again, I could see that I had stories where years before I had broken down the stories that I had to work out a certain amount of time, because I learned to communicate with my cells and design my cells and tell my cells exactly what to do. It's why I continue to get younger every day. It's why I actually can design my body to operate in ideal, optimal health. And so for years, as I've gotten younger, people are asking what's the secrets? And I'm like, it's spiritual alignment. It's literally, the more my body becomes light, the more I cleanse and clear my system of any, heavy vibrational energy, etc. The lighter I become, the more, my body regenerates every single day, the more youthful I become, all these things. So even with that, and even though I had arrived at a place where I felt that it's something I'd healed, well, guess what? A whole nother layer was ready to be alchemized. A whole nother layer was ready to be revealed. And that just meant the fact that this stuff came up, that I could be like, holy fuck, I went from the struggles with my body to becoming a personal trainer to becoming a deep mindset coach, an emotional body coach, and then going into DNA activation and cellular cleansing. And it's like, I have the depths of like the woo-woo cray-cray, communicate with my system and design my body. And it didn't matter if I didn't work out at all. It didn't matter what I ate. I could transmute it all to light. And even being at that place, then things got triggered to then feel completely out of whack with it again. And it wasn't because I'd gone backwards, it was because I was going forwards. And that's what I want you to hear. It was, wow, there's a whole nother layer that had to be revealed so that I could feel out of control, find these stories of attachments and expectations I have about, the deepest places of my wounds and my hurts that say, I'm not enough and I don't want to be seen or heard unless this happens. And guys, it was such an intense emotional feeling for me. This actually about a year and a half ago, as I dove into some deeper understanding on my own human design and my gene keys. And it's like I have in my genes, it's a constant fight that I want perfectionism. So there's this strive for perfectionism, but I am here for teaching radical self-acceptance and how we're already perfect. And actually in my design, it's that I learn through finding all the ways it doesn't work to serve and teach and share the light. And so it's like, I'm here to actually be the example of being imperfect. And my soul wants to fight that because it's like, and you can see how it's led me to the deepest journeys by wanting to be like, as much as I want to be that perfect looking, Instagram photo, I actually felt so much pain in my body that there would ever be that disconnect or trying to share that with the masses versus the truth is you're so fucking beautiful and divine the way you are. And it was interesting how I could witness that I could see every person in whatever shape and size and race and experience in pure love. Yet on my own self, there was still layers of judgment or shame or blame that that was just connected to the core wound that was really the scared little self that didn't think that they were enough and was just wanted to be these ideas to feel more safe and more loved and more accepted. And the truth is you're never going to feel more safe and loved and accepted until you love yourself because you create your level of own safety, your level of own worth, your level of own love. And I only receive the world based on what I'm giving to myself. And so as I had that stuff really come up and getting to just continue to have the layers of being seen, being heard, running retreats, going through these activations and this witnessing this, what I was referring to before is that I recognized a story was there that was like, well, I'm all alone and I'm by myself, so no one's going to see me, so I can eat shit food. It's like, whoa, it was all about how I looked and not how I felt and honoring my body as a temple and being in alignment with what felt good for me. And I could recognize how when I was so desperately feeling all over the place and would go to those old patterns, how then I felt so disconnected and so shitty and blah, 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 all the things. And it was like, this actually is me. It's almost like it's hurting myself. Like I'm the one who's suffering. I don't feel good. It doesn't matter who's around, but it was coming from that belief and deep beliefs around food from being raised the way that I was. It was like, give it to myself because I can now. There was so many layers there. And what I want you to hear as I bring this to, an understanding is as I was willing to go the depths of that looked like the oldest shit that could make me feel like I was like, man, I feel like a fucking fraud. I feel like, all these layers that I've gone to come into alignment with this are just out the window. And instead of judging it, it was witnessing and seeing all that pain and all the things that was there to allow me to hold myself in love, no matter what it looked like, to be with, be seen by other people, to go through all these experiences. All of that was the greatest learning. And what I want to share one experience with you. And that as I, so two things I shared, that the food stuff came up big, and even that the thing about being alone came up really big. Like in some of my experiences in Egypt, it was just like wanting the depth of, as I've done a lot of work over the last couple of years of aligning and harmonizing the divine union within myself, the feminine and the masculine. And it's like, as within, so without, as above, so below. Everything is only a reflection. And so the more that I harmonize, I've become my own beloved, and everyone is my beloved. And, it's like there's love for all things and with everyone. And there's been this harmonizing that I've been focused on. And yet it brought up another layer that got to be healed that was feeling like I wanted that, partner, divine sacred union, to be going through these experiences all over the world and riding camels in the depths of the pyramids. And then, as I'm here, this beautiful retreat. So this was even coming up for me recently. And just, I noticed this coming up. And it was like my mind was trying to project into the future what the path would look like and da-da-da-da-da. And when I bring it back to the present, what I knew is all this was coming up because I was ready to heal that other layer of any way that I could ever feel not whole or not enough or not fulfilled or not satisfied. And what I want you guys to hear is that is manifestation. Manifestation comes from vibration. And if the vibration is I'm whole and complete, I'm fulfilled and satisfied, there is no lack. And so whatever I focus my attention on, coming from a place of no attachment, that I am already whole, I'm in the vibration of being fulfilled and having it. That means I effortlessly can align to it. That's the alignment to it. Versus if I say, oh, I really want this thing and I'm going to focus on the thing. And this is why I say we're so jacked up in all the misinformation around manifestation that we're focusing on trying to attract the thing and create the thing, which the thing is saying, we're saying, I don't have it. And when I have it, and it's coming from a place of lack, I want the thing. So it's not in alignment to actually being fulfilled and being a match to it and having it. And also, then it's not aligned to the consciousness of it because it's just trying to get the thing. So let me see where I was with that. When I, was feeling all this stuff coming up, that it was me realizing, I was like, okay, so what I know is I am whole and complete. What I know is that I am, as I had healed and done a lot of the depths around alones before, it's like, whoa, it went from me being like, oh, I wish I had someone to see these things with me, to me realizing I am worthy of seeing these things. I love getting to travel and meet people and see the coolest things. And I'm doing this for my own experience. I didn't actually need a person with me for me to have the experience. They weren't going to give me my happiness or ability. And these are all really misconstrued perceptions and ideas and stories that we've just taken into our belief systems and way of operating based on our collective conscious agreements of how life should look. And it'll be successful when you meet your partner and you're doing these things and it looks like this. And that's a beautiful choice. And it also can create suffering. Again, we talk about creating our own suffering. If I'm experiencing me being in this world doing these things and me to think in any way that I'm not whole and complete until I have that person by my side, or that there's someone else to share this with. And I caught this. So I caught the food stuff, and I want to share this experience I had just recently in the steps. As I've been going through the steps of seeing and witnessing each idea, each story, each program, each belief, and like, whoa, that's why that wants to come up. That's, that doesn't support me to think that it doesn't matter what I look like if no one's around me, and catching that. And then again, bringing it into alignment of like, what is really true? What do I want to feel? What is the patterns and behaviors in alignment with that level of experience and consciousness? So as I caught the aloneness thing, what I remembered was, I was like, wait, well, that's interesting it's obviously bringing up some old shit, because I know consciously that's not true. And I know I've done healing work around this and I thought it had been healed, but obviously there's layers that got to be witnessed. And this came up a few times for me, actually with deep activation work in Egypt. It came up that I felt the depths of feeling alone, and I've had a whole massive journey around aloneness led to abandonment, abuse, being lost, and literally going to die. Like, these are depths of energy and trauma stuck in my cells from my multi-generational family contracts, from the epigenetics, from the things I've experienced. So even doing all this work on it, guys, the show I really wanted to bring forth was, you're going to have your shit come up again. And it only is allowing you to go to another deeper layer of emotional alchemy, to fully be with it, and that churn of the stuff that comes up, to heal it at another level, to catch the patterns and behaviors or deepest beliefs that are underneath the ones that you had just gone through and thought you healed before. You did heal them. There's just more. And then it allows the capacity. So the range that you're willing to go to the depths equates to your capacity. And I've said this lots of times. You might have heard me talk about this on another show. Who knows? Because it's our continual growth and journey. And the amount that I'm able to do and hold, people are always like, how did you do this 5-hour training? Or I can't imagine how you went through that, watching me for like 7 days in a retreat, being a total, Jedi alchemist, shamanista, priestess, all these things coming through. And I'm like, it's because I've continued to go the depths of my own emotional healing that have allowed the range and the capacity that I can go with people to the depths as well as to the heights and available. And it's allowed my capacity, my energy to be able to there's a massive amount of energy that I can hold. And there's a massive field that I can hold in a healing space. There's all these things because of expanding those depths and that range. And so I want you to hear that because I was willing to go another level of depth, what I caught was, wow. So if my highest self, future self, is experiencing total fulfillment and satisfaction, literally I'm like recognizing I'm at this beautiful retreat place. I'm at this gorgeous place and I'm feeling, instead of just being like, wow, every moment being joy and bliss and happy, again, I was looking for the weeds, right? I was creating my own suffering by, instead of seeing how the beach was right there that I could go on a walk at any moment, it was like, oh, I really wish I was here with someone that I could do the beach walk and we could, these cool things and go do all this stuff. And it's like, wow, interesting that I'm choosing to see that versus see what's available. And as I caught myself and went through the being with this fully of why this was coming up, and that it was just another layer to then now, this is the point, guys, is to choose to integrate the new beliefs, the new behaviors. And so I caught it and I got to be with all of it. That's why a lot of the sabotage and the things were coming up. And I was like, all right, so what would be the patterns and behaviors that would actually be in alignment to the future self-consciousness, that would be in alignment to already being so fulfilled? And I know, and I would get to completely do all those things and be in complete love and joy without any attachment to anything else, without, not, oh, I can't do that because, and I recognize, and guys, this is where it's so slight, it's so micro, and the mastery is in the micro alignment. You see the tiniest little thought that's keeping you from doing something that you didn't even really recognize was there because it's just so embedded in you as a story of the way that we are as humans or the way that, it's supposed to look, etc. It's like, I know years ago, I didn't think I would have felt uncomfortable eating out by myself. Now it's like everywhere I go, I'm with myself. And I get asked sometimes, people are you alone? No, I'm with myself. I'm with me. And I make friends everywhere. And I just get the divine besties and allies that come out of the woodworks and all places all over the world. So my point is, this was actually a couple days ago, and why I wanted to bring clarity around here. I had, was creating my own suffering. And as I was like, well, how do I get to experience more joy? What would my highest self, my future self that's already operating from a place, that consciousness that's already operating from a place of having all these things, being in fulfillment and alignment to all these things, how would I be operating now that I am catapulted into the future self and I am having that experience? And it was like, I get to literally see the good in every moment. And so it's like a conscious decision. And so as through the day, as I was choosing and looking at what would feel the most good right now? How could I experience more joy right now? What would feel, how would I experience more joy in my body? It's ooh, I'm going to go lay out on the beach, and I lay out on the beach and I listen to some stuff. And then it was ooh, what would feel good next? And it's I really want to support myself. I want to go get some things for, the kitchen. And this was one of the moments for me, guys, where I recognized I wanted to eat some shitty food, and I felt into it and the stories around it. And it was what would my highest self, what would the consciousness of my highest self be experiencing this as? What would the patterns and behaviors of now? There could have been the place where it was well, my highest self wouldn't be buying shitty food. I recognize my highest self wouldn't have a story about it. And I was okay, cool. I feel like I want this ice cream. And this coming from a place of what was called forth was me changing a pattern and behavior of all through these experiences where I was choosing to sabotage with shame and blame and out of old stories about food, to choosing to actually have experience and it be of the highest vibration. It's my highest self doesn't have a story about if I eat ice cream or, about any attachment or expectation other than pure love and joy. And this was an experience for me. This has happened in the past where it's when I was with friends and we're, experiencing all these things in Egypt, and I even having what my old self would have said was stories about food or different things, I was lean and shredded. And I was it's all about the vibration. Then I could have a day where I ate shitty food and I felt fatty and off and disconnected. And it was because the vibration about when I was having it was these attachments and these stories. And so the energy, I could go off on a whole thing around energy. And I feel I've probably done quite a bit already in what we've been getting into, yet everything is about energy. Energy never lies, and energy creates the vibrational match towards, whatever you're feeling. So when you eat something, and I literally, and this is just like in the past when I went through this, when I chose to communicate with my cells that everything I ate was transmitted into light, and that it would feed my body exactly all it required for the highest nutrition for my body to be a vessel of optimal health and operating perfectly with ease and grace, lean, toned, healthy, energized. Everything else was moved through my system and given back to Gaia's compost. And I would bless my food with that. I would design and tuck my body that way. That would be my experience. Now, as I had all this stuff come up again because there was deeper depths of healing, it's almost like I kind of forgot the lesson and had to like relearn at another depth the next level of tool. Because the old tools that you were using, what you learned and was truth for you at one stage, again, as I said before, you all of a sudden learn there's a whole nother layer of embodiment and understanding that is the old stuff doesn't apply. There's a new next level of growth and understanding. And so as I had an experience, I chose to have an experience where I literally started dancing and I had some of the ice cream, and it just was like, I was experiencing it out of joy I realized I had to have a shift, that next level of dropping attachments and all the work that I'd done around dropping attachments and expectations about my body and being in full acceptance, but also what I was attached to with food at another layer and level, and what it meant about me and so it's like bringing light and love and joy and liberation and that vibration to it. And then I had this whole night of like, I was dancing and I was singing and I had candles and I was giving myself the experience that I thought, oh, if I had someone else here, I want to do all these things. And I sat down that day and was like, okay, like what are the things that support me in being in alignment? It's like, I want to go on a beach walk every day, like morning or night. I get to do my breath work and my meditations. I'm going to be dancing every day. I'm singing every day. I'm literally like, whatever I want to experience here, I'm out there going, whoa, this is beautiful and so amazing. And catching that I got to give it to myself. And I probably said that a lot too, but it's something that's always consistently going to be there, is that you are the source of your own experience. You get to give it to yourself. And so I had the most magical, blissful, I had self-loving time. I had the most magical, blissful. I was like, fuck, like why would I ever, look at how I was creating my own suffering, thinking like, oh, I wish I, really had that person to be, sensual with, all that. I'm like, fuck, that was awesome. What I just experienced was awesome. And like, I didn't need anyone to be able to receive that. I actually got to give it to myself. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to go on a nighttime beach walk. And I went out. And as I was walking, I was really focused on walking as my higher self. And these are all the little ways that with each behavior, with each thing you choose. So it's like, as I was walking, I was like, like every step, I'm like walking as Isis, as the goddess activations I received in Egypt, and just with ease and grace in every step, and feeling the water come up on my feet and feeling Gaia beneath me, and just feeling like in every step how I'm like, I am the frequency of my future self. I am the frequency of highest alignment. And when I attuned to this, guys, my body effortlessly began to shed and get lean again, meaning like the vibrational alignment of me healthy and strong, which is what I choose to operate from. All that stuff got to come up. It didn't mean I was, and even though there's days, and I just want to share this with you guys, that there's days you feel fucked. There's days, this is normal. So, as much as people might want to create a perception of it's all roses, it is roses when you realize, like, as I always say to people, like when people say, Marci, do you ever experience shit? I'm like, well, yeah, like I'm constantly in my growth and evolution, and I just don't see it as shit because I know it's the next layer of what is getting cleared and healed and transmuted for me to receive what's on the other side. So I always see the gifts in my shit, but I can tell you, I experience all human emotions, and I can give power to or respect to the power of each emotion. And I can see all the darkness and all the dark matter and all this energy that is just infinite possibilities of creation, which whole nother story, is just as much my God consciousness as my light. And so yes, I experience all of my humanness and all of my multidimensionality that gives me access to more of my multidimensionality and more of my humanness. And so the goal is, how do I bring myself to experiencing more of what I want as I go? How do I focus on more joy? How do I experience more joy in my body? How am I experiencing that of my humanness and letting go of the suffering? Because again, I could be now, so since I've been transmuting that, I've literally been on like cloud 10, really like, how the fuck did I not just see all the greatness? Like, I'm so blissed and happy in every moment. Ooh, what would feel good? I'm going to go to breakfast. Ooh, what would feel good? I'm going to go for a walk on the beach. Ooh, what would feel good? I'm going to go snorkeling. Ooh, what would feel good? I'm like, I want to record. Ooh, what would feel good? And I'm just, everything is joy. But when I was in my depths of my shit and the stuff was churning, all those thoughts and ideas and patterns and behaviors and those things had to come up as emotion to alchemize and to transmute and give direction and cleanse and clear, to heal, to fully be with, to fully accept, to fully love. Before we can surrender it to the divine, to transmute into light and give it back to Gaia's compost, and before we can cleanse it and it moves from our field. And see, all of this, you guys, what I want you to hear is all of this was coming up because I was leaning in and going into these deep activations, which were then only going to experiencing these levels of high vibrational frequency. It had to pull up in my system what couldn't coincide with that. And so this stuff had to be witnessed and revealed so that now I could be at a higher vibrational frequency in my body, to be at another level of operating that I love myself no matter what, that there is no attachments to how I look, and that there is freedom in my body and joy in my body, and the freedom with all foods and no attachments or stories or expectations. There's levels of healing, and there could be more that get to come up for me and continue to grow and evolve in this space, which is totally just part of our process. So the whole point I wanted to share in, not only going from giving myself how I would be experiencing divine sacred union by giving it to me and having a joyful date night with myself. Every single day is a date day. I was like, I love my fucking dates with myself. Like, life is so blissed and blessed. And literally the shift of waking up and being it's so effortless versus those days when you feel you're like, okay, I'm doing my best to focus on, creating alignment to the higher self. But there's just so much feelings and emotions alchemy. That's all perfectly part of the process. And so going from your shit through the pathway to your serenity, your peace, your love, your joy, coming to a place where I say all the time, my highest priority is peace. If there's anything I'm not at peace with, it's witnessing and showing to me what's within that gets to still be healed and loved, that allows me to then be at peace with that thing. So that could be becoming at peace with a story or attachment or expectation and shedding a story, attachment, or expectation. To be completely at peace with my body no matter what I'm experiencing. To be completely at peace and notice the difference of me experiencing a beautiful, gorgeous paradise and feeling sad and hurt and wounded and upset and disconnected and not enjoying it. And the very next day when I really saw and witnessed and moved through and then allowed myself to move into these shifts, having a completely different experience. Nothing changed but me, my focus, my willingness to get curious and give myself joy and to give myself those things and to fully feel and be with all these things and choose a different experience that then now is integrated into my body, my system, and literally feels like my whole body just went through a whole shift of higher, greater light. And that's what all this churning and all this stuff has been about, is for me to come to a greater experience of embodiment of love for myself and my body, of love for, giving myself the freedom and the joy, and coming from programs that were life is hard, it's sacrifice, it's tolerating. There's so many more lessons that came through that I'm sure I'll share in some other shows, and even just diving into these two core wounds that wanted to come up and what really happened. What I just really want to share is that, the healing also comes in the integration. So it's like I had all these experiences that brought up, because again, every single experience is for my benefit. Every single experience is going to bring forth what gets to be healed within me. And as I then am in my daily life experience, where I'm integrating in the new highest codes of light, the new depths of like those feelings, the essence, the frequencies, the codes I received in my body, the new belief systems, all the old shit has to come up, my friends, so that it can be alchemized and transmuted to align to the new way of being, to align to the micro alignments get to come up. So now I'm even more so aligned to operating from that place, and that becomes my norm. So each level is calling you forth to the next level, what your norm is, of how much you can receive, how much joy, how much bliss, how much pleasure, all of that. So I really wanted to bring presence to that, simply because, obviously seeing where it can be unclear for people to be like, what the fuck are you talking about? that it's a choice to have suffering. And hopefully from sharing this, you can see that we can be having the exact same experience and we can choose to see it out of suffering, to experience it out of suffering, or we can choose to see it out of what we're learning, what's right, what it's giving us gifts and access to, and how else we can experience joy and how we can move into our own liberation. And I have the deepest empathy and compassion for any and all beings and all people that are experiencing any level of suffering. And there's still so many layers and programs for myself of experiencing suffering versus freedom that I get to catch and witness and continue to move. And it's the only reason I'm experiencing the level of life I'm experiencing now is because I've continued to do that. And I'm still on the journey. Like I'm not, I'm my own teacher, just like you're your own greatest teacher. Satnam, you are your own greatest teacher. And through all of us being completely authentic and vulnerable and transparent as to, this is just a part of our human journey that we chose in on to shift the lower vibrational frequencies into a higher vibrational frequency to align to fifth dimensional consciousness, to align to releasing ourselves of individuation and coming into wholeness with all people and beings and things and experiences and all of life. That is to come into peace, my friends. Come into peace with all things. And that is how we arrive at our own serenity, whether it be me being at peace with and releasing stories about what my body has to look like or what foods do or etc., that I'm at peace with it. I come into a vibration of peace and wholeness and no attachment or expectation of anything outside of me. And so that is the journey that we get to move through and taking it a step at a time to go. And I just want you to see how you can go from your shit to your serenity so fast. There's no such thing as time. It's simply a choice. So it is always a choice. I love you so much, my friends. Thanks for being with me on this fun, my friend and I like to call it the comedy shit show. It's like the roller coaster of our awakening, our up and our down as we're going through the range and the capacity of our emotional alchemy to only receive greater. And I simply share this as this is just, what I'm called to do and a gift to the world. And so I continue to do my best to let go of all attachments and expectations or judgments around how it looks and what comes out and etc. And I'm just here to share. And I hope that you received or do receive from this, and what lands in your system is whatever your soul is seeking for you to then integrate into your life to have the next greater level of your bliss and your liberation. I love you, my friends. Thank you, my friends, for joining me for another amazing conversation to create change. To allow that change to take place, please integrate the tools so that you can really receive the change into your life. And I invite you to join us for even more in the Best Life Tribe and continue on your path and your journey. And remember who you really are, a divine being that is already whole, already worthy, completely deserving, and fully capable to now claim and live the life you love.